Two Worlds, One Family by Dragon Translator. Chapter 30, Dragon Flower. Brace yourselves. Stoic ambled off the ship. Hiccup watched him walk past the dragons, giving each an affectionate scratch, even Sharpshot. While Stoic refused to fly again after the day of the shield painting, the chief had taken it upon himself to pat each and every dragon that crossed his path. Toothless, Stormfly, and Sharpshot got scratches from Stoic, though. Not that the man played favourites, or so he vehemently said. A slight tug from Astrid brought Hiccup back to the here and now. He jerked, finding Johann staring at him.
"Acting Chief," the trader said, "such an adventure awaits you, Master Hiccup. You must tell me all about it when I next visit these shores. Now, is there something you wish?"
The trader reached into a chest beside him to pull out a blue oblong stone pendant tied upon a black cord.
"A lovely necklace for a lovely lady, perhaps?"
Hiccup rolled the back of his neck with his free hand. He glanced at Astrid, finding her staring at the necklace. Hiccup lowered his hand and reached into his shoulder bag, and reached out a pulley system he had been working on and finished 2 weeks ago. Astrid frowned and tugged on Hiccup's hand. He looked at her. "You said that was to trade for ink," she said. "Do you want the necklace?" Hiccup asked. Astrid did not answer, but Hiccup saw her glance at the necklace again. Hiccup smiled and held out the pulley system. Johann took it. Eyebrow lifted. "It's a wench pulley," Hiccup said. "I can install it on your mast, and it'll help you raise and lower your sails."
Johann's eyes widened. "Oh my!" he said. "And I thought your spyglass was wondrous, Master Hiccup."
Johann handed Hiccup the necklace and then set the pulley system down. The trader then moved to another chest nearby and reached behind it. He returned, holding a capped inkwell. He picked up the pulley system and held it out to Hiccup.
"Install it, Master Hiccup, and I'll give you this inkwell."
Hiccup blinked. "But the trade was for the necklace."
Johann smiled. "You are correct, Master Hiccup, but the labour of installing it is the trade for the ink."
Hiccup tilted his head. "You're sure?"
"I'm sure."
Hiccup released Astrid's hand before turning and placing the necklace around her neck. She fingered the pendant, then stared at Hiccup and smiled. He returned the smile before taking the pulley system from Johann and heading towards the main mast on the ship. Astrid followed, still glancing down at the pendant every so often. Hiccup's smile turned into a grin, but he focused upon installing the wench pulley. Just before he could finish, he heard the 3 dragons on the dock give low growls. Astrid hissed and Hiccup heard her move. He looked over his shoulder. Astrid had her back to him and blocked his view of the gangplank. He could see the dragons out of the corner of his eye and saw all of them glaring across the gangplank. Hiccup straightened and turned. His eyes narrowed as Mildew set a basket of cabbage down beside Johann. "You got it?" Mildew asked. Johann pointed to several tall baskets stacked upon each other. Mildew used his staff to point to the cabbage. He then turned to Bear's Pit, of all people, and gestured to the tall baskets. "Take these to my farm." Mildew walked off the ship. Hiccup watched him take a different dock away from the 3 dragons. Said dragons watched the old man's progress. Hearing Bear's Pit grunt caused Hiccup to look back. The man had 1 basket in hand and was making his way across the gangplank. To Hiccup's surprise, Gyda walked down the dock and barred Bear's Pit's way. The last time Johann had been in port, she had not ventured down to look over the trader's wares. She had instead gone to meditate. Hiccup had not expected her to come down this time, but more due to her staying close to her new hut and Pale Wing's eggs. "Oi, lass, get gone! I gotta take this a long distance." "You are going nowhere," Gyda said, glaring at Bear's Pit. "Out of my way before I move ya!" Gyda held up her hand, crackling with lightning. The glow from the spell cast her hooded face in a dark shadow. "Try," she said, her voice ice.
"No fights," Johann called. "I detest violence."
Gyda never moved, and the lightning still crackled around her hand. Hiccup moved around Astrid, much to her annoyance, if her aggravated-sounding huff was any indication. He shot her a glance and hurried to stand next to Bear's Pit. "Lad, get your slave off of the dock." "She is not my slave." Hiccup said, glaring at Bear's Pit. She is no one's slave. We will never have slaves on Burke. I dunna care, boy. Get her out of the way. Hiccup glared at Bear's Pit for a heartbeat before looking at Gita. What's wrong? He asked. Open the basket and tell me what is in there, please. Hiccup turned to Bear's Pit. The man glared at Hiccup. This is Mildew's. You've got no right to do with it what you please. Hiccup's eyes narrowed. Put it down, Bear's Pit. No. Astrid walked over and glared at Bear's Pit. Put that basket down. Lass, ain't no business of yours. It'd be man's talking. Bear's Pit, Hiccup said, his voice granite. Never say that to Astrid. She has every right to join in this conversation. Now put that basket down. You got no right. He has every right, Brynja said, walking up behind Gita. Stoic has placed him as acting chief. Now you best be following your chief's orders and put that basket down before I take it from you. Brynja crossed his arms over his chest. Bear's Pit growled but dropped the basket. On your head be it. Hiccup lifted the lid and frowned. He dropped it and looked at Gita.
It's just a bunch of flowers.
What colour? Hiccup blinked.
Blue.
The lightning crackled louder. Hiccup's eyes widened as snow circled Gita's other hand. That is blue oleander, Gita said. It is poisonous to dragons. You're listening to this witch? Bear's Pit asked, looking at Hiccup. Hiccup stared at Bear's Pit. She is not a witch, and you are not taking that on to Burke. It belongs to Mildew. You got no right. Hiccup narrowed his eyes. That is a danger to part of our tribe. It isn't going anywhere near them. Mr. Hofferson, is there some way to take care of these safely?
Brynja frowned. I'm sorry, Hiccup. I don't know any. Burning them may release things into the air that could affect the dragons. Sending them back with Johann would work. But if someone gets them and wants to harm the dragons...
Brynja's voice trailed off. Squadrons eat them, Fishleg said, moving from the front of the ship, a book in his hand. I read that in the Book of Dragons. It's one of their favourite treats. Hiccup looked over his shoulder at Johann.
Will you be okay with us taking the items Mildew asked you to get? I am but a humble businessman, Johann said. I was already paid for the items. If my client's chief does not wish him to have them, I will not get involved.
Hiccup turned to Brynja. Mr. Hofferson, will you take those baskets to another ship? We'll go find us a squadron, and let them have the flowers.
Aye, chief,
Brynja said with a pointed look at Bear's Pit. You have no right, Bear's Pit said. Your dad'll hear of this. The man went to walk across the gangplank, but stopped when Gita did not move, and the lightning around her did not disappear. I know you are going to run to Mildew as soon as you leave here, Gita said, her voice ice. Good. I have a message for him. I will end the person who tries to harm my children or their children. With that, the lightning disappeared and Gita moved aside. Bear's Pit stared at her and then looked at Hiccup. She's just threatening me, acting chief. What are you going to do about it? She threatened anyone who harms her children, Hiccup said, his voice clipped. Don't harm her family, and you have nothing to fear from her. Weakling! Ah! Brynja grabbed the man's tunic and pulled him off the ship. Watch your words, Bear's Pit.
Hiccup is chief right now.
Bah! You're just defending him 'cause your lass be sniffing for... Brynja reared back. Bear's Pit's eyes widened. He began to squirm. Brynja's fist connected. Bear's Pit's head jerked right. Brynja dropped him onto the deck. Hiccup walked across the gangplank and knelt next to Bear's Pit. Never speak about Astrid like that again, Hiccup said, his voice calm but sharper than volcanic rock. Or it will not be her father you have to deal with. He glared at Bear's Pit. It will be me. He stood and stepped back. Bear's Pit stared upon Hiccup and then at Brynja. The man stood and then walked away. Toothless, Sharpshot and Stormfly snarled at him, all teeth bared, but none made a move to harm him as he walked by them. Brynja sighed as Bear's Pit headed up the walkway.
He's never been the same since Dog's Breath left, Brynja said. I worry he thinks you're responsible,
Brynja added, looking at Hiccup. Nothing new there, Hiccup said before turning to Astrid. He reached over, entwining the fingers of his right hand with the ones on her left. She frowned at him, but he just smiled. Mr. Offerson, he began, looking at Astrid's father, if you gather those baskets, I'll finish installing the pulley system I designed for Trader Johann. I'll meet you afterwards, and we can go find a squadron. Brynja grinned. Sure thing, Chief, he said. Fish, help me out here. Fishlegs placed his book into a pocket of his tunic. He moved over and began to aid Brynja, taking the baskets Johann pointed off the trader's ship. Hiccup gently tugged upon Astrid's arm, walking her back to the mast. He glanced over, finding her father not on the ship at the moment, and Fish and Johann looking elsewhere. Hiccup turned back to Astrid. He lifted his left hand, his fingers caressing her cheek. His hand slid to the back of her neck, his fingers curling gently to pull her closer. His lips brushed softly against hers. His thumb began to softly rub her neck. Astrid hummed softly. Hiccup increased the pressure of his lips against hers. She returned it with equal force. When breath became important, Hiccup lifted his head, but his hand remained curled around her neck. He laid his forehead against hers for several heartbeats, before smirking and giving her a quick peck. He let her go, turning back to the wench and pulley. She grunted. He braced for a punch on the arm. She huffed and he grinned, knowing he was in for it later. End of chapter. Hi guys, hope you enjoyed that one. I like this. Hiccup flexing his muscles, Brynja having his future son-in-law's back, and also Hiccup and Astrid work as a team. I have mentioned this before, but especially in the acting chief bits, you see that he is not just alpha. She is his future queen. He will say this frequently when dragons ask why she is talking to them. He said, she is my future queen. You will respect her. This is the start of that, and I love it. And also the blue oleander thing being nipped in the bud because Gyda knows those things might harm her kids and now future grandkids. Don't mess with a mama bear. Don't mess with a mama dragon. Anyway, you guys know the drill. Like, comment and subscribe and hit that bell to get notified whenever I upload a new video. Have a good day, night, or whatever time zone you're in. Bye my guys, gals and non-binary pals. I'll see you in another video. Take care.